Hello, and welcome. I am Ozma in the Dark, utilizing a gray tank top. I'm pale as fuck, it's brown hair and blue eyes. I am here to, well, for one, I'm streaming for you. I'm streaming for... I'm streaming for you. No, I just am trying to do my best to provide content you might find entertaining and or enjoyable, which I guess entertaining is enjoyable. So the book is called A Passion for Friends. It's written by a noted transphobe who in her previous book said, she's got a book that I will also cover called A Transsexual Empire: Rise of the She-Male. And so, yeah, that's going to have to be, like I said, they'll be covered later, but she argues for that it doesn't matter if trans people are happy, that we should make sure that there's less of them. And this was written like the 70s. So you can imagine how she thinks now, which is, I mean, about the same, but it's more frustrating in modern times. I mean, I guess 70s still modern times. You get my drift. Prologue, point summary. Janice Raymond seems to consider lesbian to be ideal for women and men being gay to be neither ideal for them nor not ideal. I believe there is I personally, not Janice Raymond, I believe that she seems to attribute inherent evil values to men and inherent good values to women. She mentions repeatedly that being a lesbian is a choice and not something inherent to individuals, i.e. not something you're born, not not something you're born with. She doesn't seem to understand or to consider romance and sexual attraction to be a part of what it means to be a lesbian, just avoiding anyone she considers to be a man. Also, she seems to believe in a hierarchy where women, quote unquote, women true to themselves are ones who avoid any social or romantic interaction with a man. And it's also set up in a way for her to consider any woman and determine whether or not they are, a woman who's truly acting like a woman. Chapter 1, my notes thus far. I will have a summary at the end of chapter 1 when I'm prepping for where I take a break from this after the first chapter. And I get into chapter 2. So, chapter 1, according to Man, I'm starting to get anti-evolution vibes, and I'm not comfortable with this. She doesn't seem to understand evolution. Okay. Some swearing occurs right afterwards, and also this will probably be, well, I was going to say this will be demonetized from swearing, but I can't monetize these anyways, so whatever. Anyways, she frames a passage originating from the Torah, calling it, quote-unquote, the Jewish Bible, which is like the most Christian thing outside of Judeo-Christian, to be used to describe anything Christian that's old. Anyways, then putting it a lot of Christian stuff not believed by most rabbis. That probably relates to the Adam and Eve story, which is a lot more complicated. And yeah, anyways, she talks about functionalism a bunch. Primary. Oh yeah, she has like these weird definitions for things, because I try to understand the definitions that she's trying to use, but she oftentimes puts so much into them that they become a giant word salad and could be attributed to anything. So she says primary, momentous, prominent, remarkable, never to be forgotten, stirring, critical, vital, and essential. It characterizes friendships that are original and independent, as well as fundamental and radical. The genealogy of female friendship is also the story of women who have interpreted the word primary in a more measured sense. That is, the friendships of women are marked by a judgment of due proportion, what is due to women. In this measured sense, women who are primary to one another put each other first in the order of importance, first in claims of attention, affection, and activity. Oh yeah, that. I don't think there's a lot more than that, but that's definitely like a red flag right there. I'll probably have to put that into notes, but that is definitely a red flag. And also, I get the impression that a lot of Catholic feminists specifically seem to be major influencers of the anti-trans movement that has become far more popular in the UK. At least the ones claiming to be feminists are much more popular in the UK than they are in America, those particular ones. Now we have a lot of conservatives who are just, mask off anti-trans. So I prefer the American style personally, but yeah, because at least you know what you're dealing with. You don't have to go through the convoluted stuff like this book. Anyways, prime also means active, most active, thriving, or successful stage or period in one's life. Possibly more added to primary. Yeah, that was. She has like so much added to the word primary that I almost don't want to go through all of it, because it basically ultimately ends up making the word primary meaningless, or makes it seem like the people who are considered primary are inherently abusers by the way primary is defined. Anyways, let's see here. The origins of female friendship are also in female culture. Female culture is past, present, and ongoing, and thus the origins of female friendship are not confined to any static original state or golden age of gin affection. As I know in the introduction, the vitality of women's quote-unquote otherness is grounded in the culture that women have crafted with and for each other throughout history and in all cultures. She's essentially saying that there is an ideal way to be a woman, and that ideal could be anything. I actually probably should have just skipped to that, because that explains it. But I guess quotes are important for notes. Quotes are important for notes. Anyways, she then says women create society. I presume to then say men tainted society with their evils, since that is her attitude. There's a quote here: "Women as cultivators of the mind, spawning thing." But people brought up universal goddess cult, which is. Tavi specifically brought it up. Tavi is a good person. Basically, they posit the idea that before Christianity in Europe, there's a singular cult of worshipping a vague quote-unquote goddess within a matriarchy, the idea dependent on ignoring the diversity of religion in Europe's history. I have listed here Robert Graves' The White Goddess, but there seems to be a lot of other sources, and that aspect of things are very convoluted, and I haven't gone through all of it. I tried to get through. I mean, I think I skimmed the goddess notes. I will need to go into more detail on that, because it does definitely relate to this particular way of thinking, which apparently was common in this wave of feminism, or more common in this wave of feminism, I should say. Oh yeah, women provide women with a sense of difference, importance, autonomy, and affection. I have no idea what she meant by that. Like, you can there. You don't need another person to, like, just living in the world provides you with a sense of difference. And people should feel important for being human. Autonomy, you shouldn't need other people to provide you with autonomy. Then it's not autonomy anymore. And affection, anyone can be affectionate towards each other, whatever. And then she goes on about primogeniture, which is the firstborn son/father thingy. Basically the importance of devoting anything good in terms of wealth and culture and privilege and generational stuff to the firstborn son. And then original woman, it should be clear from the entire content of this work, but to reiterate in one place and in direct terms, the phrase original woman is not used in a static, ontological, or historical sense, nor does it ground women's friendships in any biological base. Original women create their own originality. Such originality is a continually developing state of being, not something a woman achieves all at once in some feminist moment of truth. Actually, now that I've read that note again, this actually reminds me of some of the elements of toxic masculinity. So but with women doing it instead. What was that video? I can't remember the name of the video. It was a good video. It just talked about, like, he talked about a story where, you know, he was told, oh, you know, a real man does this and whatnot, and then when he did it, he was then told a real man walks his own way. And it's a sort of same level of statement where you can just skew anything and it really reeks. I mean, for one thing, it reeks of abuse. I'm starting to get more red flag vibes from this person. And as manipulation by abusive people is effective, is still effective and can still can occur, and you can end up with groups and cults and attitudes like that. I lost my train of thought with that, but like, this is essentially let me make this note so I can make a clearer note. Essentially, real women walk their own path, similar to the phrase used among men to suggest real men walk their own path, unless, of course, it diverts too much from societal norms, in which they're criticized for not being real women or men. I say women and men here because non-binary people is not even acknowledged as real in a lot of these type things. So Foucault. Foucault is a classic philosopher who writes in a similar way to Janice Raymond in that it's very convoluted. So it makes sense that Raymond here just likes Michel Foucault. Anyways, there have been various theories of history. Oh, by the way, also she talks about like how all this stuff about getting affection and real women and how women need to create their own history, and now she's potentially and given the fact that she's quoted Foucault earlier in this book, I get the impression she's going to praise a man telling her how to formulate her philosophy when she criticized that exact same thing in like the prologue, if I recall correctly. There's a lot to this book. Anyways, there have been various theories of history. In general, the grandiose patriarchal past has conformed its participants and non-participants to some underlying purpose or plan, teleological, or has used general laws or formulas, scientific evolutionism, to explain history. I'm sorry. What? Scientific evolutionism? Yeah, no, she definitely doesn't believe in evolution. No, what is she say? Like, she's saying that's a patriarchal thing. What, saying that women came first and essentially, so Aristotle said women are essentially twisted, deformed version of of a man. But evolution says men are twisted, deformed version of a woman. Like, what? Or at least in terms of biological sex, since gender itself is not really in the scientific thing. It's just because she says woman and man a lot interchangeably. It's easier for my brain sometimes mistakenly goes down that path, even though it's not a good path to go on. But yeah, so even historicism, there's a lot of isms she's adding to everything. Like, why is she adding so many isms? Actually, what does the ism suffix mean? 'Cause isn't that just the study of? Prejudice or discrimination on the basis of attribute, the manner of action or behavioral characteristics of a specified person or thing, animalism, process of criticism, plagiarism. What? A distinctive doctrine, cause, or theory. And like the first two things. Yeah, no, it's just weird. And it's weird, and I get the impression that she's probably using it in a negative light. Anyways, even historicism, which viewed all knowledge and forms of experience in the context of historical change, promoted the belief that an adequate understanding of anything could be gained only by viewing various phenomena within a process of development. Each event was perceived in terms of a larger process of which it was a phase or in which it played a part. Given her, how should I put? I'm pretty sure Janice Raymond earlier said stuff about intuition over like gathering of actual data. Intuition was better and more helpful. Anyways, more recent historiography has seen challenges to these traditional theories of history. Michel Foucault, influenced by the work of Nietzsche, anyways, which Nietzsche is oftentimes understood and a lot of negative stuff is, while based on aspects of Nietzsche's philosophy, are not things that Nietzsche himself would agree with, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Nietzsche still fell into the philosophical dead end that is having an ideal version of what it means to be human. Although I'm not actually no, I'm not sure, because like it is possible also that Ubermensch was with relation to the cause of you being the best version of yourself you can be. I don't know enough about Nietzsche to basically, I don't know enough about Nietzsche to give strong criticism where it may or may not be warranted. Anyways, has focused on a theory of history as discontinuity. It is important to examine Foucault's work because he has written about historiography and meta-history in a way that may at first seem useful for the feminist scholar in search of the origins of female friendship. His ideas on discontinuity, transgression, origins, and genealogy, considered abstractly, are attractive, yet they cannot be divorced from his models of discontinuity, transgression, and like. Yeah, that's overly whatever. Anyways, Foucault attacks in a style that's often elusive the search for overall significance, totality, vast unities, and continuities. Wow. I don't know how I screwed up not being able to read that word. Anyways, the preoccupied traditional histories and historians. Instead, he locates the method and content of history in the disorder of things. Interruptions, displacement, transformations, and ruptures are the proper stuff of history, according to Foucault. I think... I mean, you can agree with both ways of looking at history. They don't necessarily have to be absolute versions of both of those concepts. You can have something which is somewhat it is based on the best information you can get, and the displacements, interruptions, all the atypical stuff. Basically, a lot of nothing tells you information the same way a lot of something tells you information. That's I think true with most scientific theories, along with communication in general. Anyways, if the feminist searcher attempts to use Foucault's notion of history as discontinuity in discovering the origins of gyn affection, hate her weird terminology. Her first question must be discontinuous with whom and or with what? Am I just not processing the word discontinuous? This is what I hate about Foucault. Foucault uses like overly it's a sort of classism, having intervals or gaps. Oh, having intervals and gaps. Women have always been enjoined to be discontinuous with our original selves, with our true selves, with a female and feminist past whose continuities we have never known. Foucault fails to recognize the unneeded and unwanted discontinuities of women for whom oppression has been continuous, and who throughout this continuity of oppression have been coerced into discontinuity with the history of women in general and genital affections in particular. Let me just... It's a really long sentence. Anyways, Dale Spender has stated with crisp directness the historical problem of women's discontinuity with our own history. It is disturbing to recognize what we today have in common with women of the past is our experience of being silenced and interrupted, our experience of becoming a member of society in which women have no visible past, no heritage, our experience of existing in a void. I mean, it's not, we have been slowly getting more and more information about stuff that women have done that have been misattributed to men by history books. There isn't. Women in different cultures have different experiences. Like, the most powerful pirate that ever existed was a woman. Like, there's stuff like that. Like, but like, to say that, to act like women have no visible past, no heritage, and is not technically true. It's not that there's nothing, it's just that it's been like I said, attributions have been various aspects have been attributed to men, which were invented by women. Like there's probably more than one. I know there's at least, at minimum, one major mathematical discovery that was made by a woman in Africa or something with regards to calculus. It could have been India. I can't remember exactly where. I was taught about it by someone I was taught about with my calculus teacher. But like there's like a woman was the first person to see DNA. A woman was the first person. There's a lot of firsts that have been done by women which get ignored by the general populace of society, but they're still, the documents aren't destroyed. It's sort of like the Catholic version of the Bible. There are documents that are stored, but people are only given a very convoluted version of the text. At least historically, Catholic thing, there's the Latin version of the text. Obviously that has changed somewhat in modern times, but like a lot of the point was to have people in authoritative positions make decide how reality appears, and with men it was oftentimes through trying to ensure a dominating position, due to at least in a lot of white European culture. Anyway, in the face of this, Foucault's adulation of discontinuity is at best abstract and at worst ignorant of the real discontinuities in women's lives. As Pat Hines sees the solution, women's history is / must be discontinuous with patriarchal history, but continuous with its own history. So, that is the problem with absolutes. You can't. Not every aspect of patriarchal version of history is incorrect. Like, that you have to assume that patriarchal. Let me just quote this. You don't need to completely create an alternate history that always disagrees with the patriarchal version. In fact, that can cause the ignoring of various aspects of history done by women which happen to likely occur. I don't think this way of looking at history is necessarily beneficial. Anyways, if, as Foucault says, discontinuities and disruptions are the stuff of history, then the origins of ginefection. Ginefection is such a weird term. Let me look at it again, because like it is so weird that yeah, it's just women loving each other and having like being their true selves or whatever type thing. Anyways, the origin of ginefection are to be found in women's historical discontinuities with men. It doesn't mean like if you focus too much on continuity and if you focus too much on discontinuity, you can miss the forest for the trees. Anyways, the continuity of female friendship has made possible women's interruptions and displacements of the man-made history of heteroreality. I think the way she uses history likely uses history as a subjective thing in which there are multiple histories and often derides the idea of an objective history. Thus, thus, whether meaning to or not, allows her to recreate one's past and decide it's the true and important past, not the past you believe occurred. Which, to some degree, that's not inherently all bad. It can be used for bad, it can be used for good, because obviously the problem is without the looking at facts that occurred and are documented, then you are essentially making the past more malleable. Now, what occurred in the past can be different from what you were taught in history class, but that doesn't inherently. You need to have basically a policy that ignores critical thinking. So essentially, for this policy to work, you can't have critical thinking. Critical thinking allows you to have a clear and defined determination of why something is regarded as a fact or not. And thinking about that is important for you to find stuff that's more accurate. Anyways, and I'm not, to be fair, I'm not sure if Foucault is much a fan of critical thinking either. It's hard to say. Foucault throws a lot of words. Anyways, finds now, a lot of cishet white dudes do frame stuff in a particular way to make it seem like they did everything important. Anyways, Foucault finds his heroes of discontinuity not quote-unquote among women. His model transgressors are the Marquis de Sade and Georges Bataille. Anyways, after reading Andrea Dworkin's groundbreaking work on pornography, oh yeah, she has a policy of like anti-pornography, anti-sex work, which on the one hand, there are aspects of sex work which have been dominated by men. That being said, that has even both sex work and pornography have been controlled more and more by women and women as free agents. So the reasoning starts to fall apart to suggest that pornography and sex work are inherently bad. And anyways, groundbreaking pornography, which contains lengthy analyses of these two men and their pornographic work. What? One recognizes that the quote-unquote philosophizing about pornography and pornographers by such reputed scholars as Foucault covers a multitude of quote-unquote transgressions that in no way offers a new theory of history but reinforces the old. Foucault, fascinated with quote-unquote the absence of God and the epidermic play of perversity, a dead God and sodomy are the thresholds of the new metaphysical eclipse, Sade and Batil. I don't know what Foucault is talking about. I don't know what this quote is talking about, and there's a large gap, which makes it confusing. Anyways, to Sade, Foucault attributes a major transformation of language in history. The date of this transformation is roughly indicated by the ... appearance at the end of the 18th century of the works of Sade ... It is not his common predilection for cruelty which concerns us here ... These languages are constantly drawn out of themselves by the overwhelming, the unspeakable, by thrills, stupefaction, ecstasy, dumbness, pure violence, wordless gestures ... This language's claim tell all is not simply that of breaking prohibitions, but of seeking the limits of the possible. I don't know what Foucault is talking about here. This is the thing, with everything with Foucault says, I feel like I need to read a paragraph without that's not broken down over several times to be able to understand what Foucault is trying to say, and even then I might disagree. Or I might think it's a lot of nonsense. Anyways, it must be understood that the quote-unquote overwhelming and the unspeakable thrills, stupefaction, ecstasy, dumbness, pure violence, wordless gestures were all accomplished over the degraded, mutilated, and often dead bodies of women who, without doubt, were overwhelmed, inarticulate, stupefied, and made dumb. As for quote-unquote thrills and ecstasy, these experiences belong to Sade. Foucault, however, would not concern himself or us with Sade's quote-unquote common predilection for cruelty. I mean, sadism is a kink? I don't know. Unless, I don't know who Sade is, so... Okay, fine, I mean, Marquis probably is not a good indicator. No, her rock works combine philosophical discourse. Despite having no legal charge brought against him, Sade was incarcerated in various prisons and an insane asylum for about 32 years of his life, solely due to lettres de cachet and involuntary commitment. Or letters signed by the King of France, countersigned by... Okay. 7 years in the Chateau de Vincennes? Anyways, 5 years in the Bastille, a month in conciergerie, 2 years in a fortress, a year in Madeleine convent, Madeleine's convent. Anyways, 3 years in Bicêtre asylum, a year in Saint-Pelagie prison, and 12 years in the Charenton asylum. During the French Revolution, he was elected delegate to the National Convention. Many of his works were written in prison. Okay. Anyway, his erotic works, which combine philosophical discourse with pornography, depicting sexual fantasies with an emphasis on violence, suffering, anal sex, child rape, crime, and blasphemy against Christianity. Okay. child rape is bad. I'm against child rapists. You know, this is a shocking position. He's a proponent of absolute freedom, unrestrained by morality. Okay, Marquis de Sade seems like a terrible person. The word sadism is derived from in reference to his works of fiction which he wrote, which portrayed numerous acts of sexual cruelty, while Sade mentally explored a wide range of sexual deviations. His known behavior includes only the beating of a housemaid and an orgy with several prostitutes. Behavior significantly departing from the clinical definition of sadism. Yeah, anyways, common predilection for cruelty is much too quote-unquote common, that is, ordinary when compared to the more lofty and intellectually weighty matters of language. Foucault transmogrifies Sade's torture and rape of women, his endless child abuse, brutality, and murder into a transforming language that defines discontinuity and transgression. I mean, I realize Marquis de Sade wrote about this stuff, which probably means he wanted, I mean, obviously means he wanted to do it, but, okay, he did do it. Okay. I was just making sure. Anyway, Sade is credited not only with providing a new language, but with delivering a new theory of history. For Foucault, Sade's language of transgression has immediate historical weight. As the root of sexuality, of the movement that nothing can ever limit, ... A singular experience is shaped, that of transgression. Perhaps one day it will seem as divisive for our culture as much a part of its soil as the experience of contradiction was at an earlier time for dialectical thought. Yes, it is very philosophy-oriented, and I'm not a philosopher. I mean, not in any traditional academic sense, at the very least. There's old intellectual stuff, indeed, claiming to offer a new language and method of history. Foucault does not challenge the hetero-historical continuity. There definitely stuff that needs to be challenged with that. The other abuse, degradation, and mutilation found in Sade and in all hetero relations of a male supremacist history. No, see, okay, so like this... implies all heterosexual or hetero hetero relations is actually a decent term. Not gonna lie there. Anyways, are inherently evil. Which fits into earlier notions I suggested views anything that relates to men as inherently evil and anything that relates to women as inherently good. Also attributing biological sex as the biological sex something found in as important in quote unquote hetero reality as the true basis for gender, but not a realistic base, but not a good basis for evolution or scientific study of biology. Basically, biology is important when convenient to justify positions. That seems to be her attitude. Anyways, Foucault joins the long parade of men who, as Andrea Dworkin notes, have kept Sade's work alive for nearly 2 centuries. Quote unquote, because literary, artistic, and intellectual men adore him, and political thinkers of the left claim him as an avatar of freedom. If there are people on the left who claim that particular libertarian idea is a good thing, the idea of Sade, they are absolutely wrong, and they are in fact taking a position which is antithetical to having a left-wing society. Because understanding the people most negatively affected by society is how you make society better for as many people as possible. Anyways, George Batil is another hero of transgression and discontinuity for Foucault. Foucault's essay, I mean, to be fair, I should hate this more, and I don't like some of it, but I always appreciate bashing of Foucault, because Foucault is an overrated philosopher. Who is good at saying very little with mountains of words. Anyways, George Batil, another history of transgression and discontinuity for Foucault. Foucault's essay, A Preface to Transgression, originally appeared in homage to George Batil, which allows Batil's story, the story of the eye. Briefly, in this upper crust pornographic fiction, the eye, which is the subject of immense fascination, takes the form of hard-boiled eggs, whose yolks are sucked out, pissed on, and then swallowed up from the bottom of toilets by the protagonist. That sounds incredibly gross. For me, if you're into that kind of thing, so long as you're keeping safe and you have a way to keep safe and healthy with that stuff, go ahead. Not for me. There's also a bullfighter's eye which dangles from his head, as Simone a major female character in the story has an orgasm. Interesting choice. And to illustrate the epitome of transgression as sacrilege, Batil focuses on a murdered priest's eye that Simone gleefully inserts into her ass. I mean, he has a kink. For Foucault, the eye is valued as a symbol of inner experience. It also becomes a figure of being. In the act of transgressing in its own limit, Foucault adequates the unnucleated or upturned eye with Batil's philosophical language. The eye, in a philosophy of reflection, derives from its capacity to observe, the power of becoming always more interior to itself. This inner movement is finally resolved in a non-material center where the intangible forms of truth are created and combined. In this heart of things, which the sovereign subject... Oh, which is the sovereign subject. This is... Foucault is weird. So, married, divorce, affair, marriage. I mean, I personally am not seeing the same amount of negative stuff as the other person, but yeah, anyways, the quote-unquote sovereign subject, the male eye, can see everything except the sovereign subject woman. What? I don't know where that conclusion came about. Foucault philosophizes that death is the limit that the eye ceaselessly transgresses. Meanwhile, the material and tangible forms of truth that women are abused, maimed, and die, that intellectuals find the meaning of life in sex as death, and that force is romanticized because it leads to death, are erased and invalidated by Foucault. But, like, the thing is, the men are the only people getting... these descriptions are men... so, like, the previous thing was, like, the previous person was, like, seemed like excessively cruel and sadistic. This person just seems like they're masochistic, and they like the idea of people being into the harm enacted upon men, which is a different attitude. Anyways, here we have fetishism as philosophy pretending to expand inner human vision and the limits of transgression. Foucault would have us believe that an egg in a toilet is a profound symbol of transgression, representing our inner experience. Never is it asked whose inner vision or whose limits are transgressed. His eye is most certainly not hers. Okay. but like that's an odd nitpick in my mind. Anyways, such are the transgressions, displacement, transformations, and discontinuities of language and history that Foucault would have us pursue. Sade and Batil would supposedly lead us into a new time, what Foucault later, in a different context, calls quote-unquote effective history. Men may revel in this quote-unquote new and quote-unquote effective history. Women who have eyes realize to see, recognize it as the same old story. In our historical searches, feminists must see the real discontinuities with and transgressions against hetero history that female friends have achieved. That women have not, are not, and will not always be in relation to or in relationships with men. Yeah. And or in relationships with men by choice and not by default, because of strength and not because of weakness, because of attraction to women and not because of victimization by men. The explanation for gay affection is not heterorelational deprivation, as psychologists have theorized. It is the independent wealth and attractiveness of female friendship. So, like, the thing is, humanity is complicated, and people should be with people who they enjoy being with. Like, and that's going to vary from person to person. But it's not... saying you choose who you feel attraction to is a very harmful attitude to have. It's the same attitude as conversion therapy, which she advocates for in the anti-trans book, The Transsexual Empire, Rise of the She-Male, or whatever. She advocates for conversion therapy, which is not surprising given her attitude towards the nature of choice. As women regain our autonomous history with each other, we must also realize that heteroreality is the real discontinuity and transgression in women's lives and friendships with each other. Male bonding and the male bondage of women have disrupted the course and current of the history and culture of gay affection. The academic fields of heterorelational knowledge have quote-unquote disciplined the memory and reality of gay affection out of many women's lives. So, like... I don't know if that necessarily describes all relations with that. I think there is a over-focus on heterosexuality and heteroromantic attitudes or experiences, and a disregarding of the possibility of homosexual and homoromantic feelings, and ultimately it's not like she seems to Raymond here seems to completely disregard the fact how much hate there is against gay men because and almost implies that it's considered okay in this book, despite the fact that, despite the amount of negative anti-gay stuff. There's a lot of anti-gay stuff out there, and I get the impression she disregards it if men are involved. And there's a lot of more broadly queer stuff, which is not recognized by this. It's very much centered around almost manufacturing a new truth to justify a position and further separate human beings into various classes of humanity. Anyways, on to the next part. Clues from the disciplines of hetero relations psychologism. Dear God, let me just... Dear God, stop adding ism to everything you don't like. It's super annoying. Sorry, I felt like that's an important note. Mostly that it... Yeah, anyways, the first tenet of Freud's theory, which the majority of people don't believe Freud's theory, and even by the 70s, Freud's version of psychoanalysis was starting to fall apart. And I think this book was written in the 80s or 90s, so... anyways, the first tenet of Freud's theory of female sexuality is that femaleness is flawed. Early in her life, the young girl realizes this ultimate female adversity, that she lacks a penis. And actually, I think... Also, I thought Freud walked back some of that attitude. Maybe I'm wrong, because a lot of the thing is being a lesbian is not in Freud's theories. You know what? Screw that. I'm not gonna get into this. And this ramifications for all areas of female existence in the world. It is supposed tragedy that will haunt the young girl all her life. No, I mean, I think the average guy would not want... Most men have a penis and like having a penis, so I don't understand how he would come to this conclusion, but I don't think most psychologists believed in penis envy by the time this book was written. Anyways, they noticed the penis of a brother or playmate strikingly visible and of large proportions. At once recognize it as the superior counterpart to their own small and inconspicuous organ. Depends on the woman. There are some women with big clits. Like, don't... There are women with clits and men and boys with small dicks. Like, there's not a guarantee. Anyways... And from that time forward, fall a victim to envy for the penis. No, obviously. Freud, no, like, very few people believe in Freud's thought processes nowadays. I was gonna say if any, but I'm sure, like... I'm sure there are psychologists who do. Anyways, in this schema, one can say that female develops not only inferiority and self-contempt, but also contempt for other women. For the girl initially blames her mother, who sent her into the world so insufficiently equipped. Yeah, Freud was weird. I'm not defending Freud. Definitely not his early works. I will say I'm pretty sure he does change his views over time because certain people called him out on his bullshit, but yeah. I'm not agreeing with most of his, and most of his stuff is BS, like his whole consciousness, subconsciousness, and I forgot the third one. Anyways, and who is almost always held responsible for her lack of a penis. According to Freud, the maturing female directs herself to men after she rejects her own sex in the initial person of the mother. Thus is the beginning of the Oedipal stage in girls. Yeah, so like Freud early on, at the very least, agreed very much that being gay was a psychological problem in Freud's eyes. And but eventually he came to some amount of acceptance of gay men, but he doesn't understand how lesbians can exist, because the existence of lesbians denounces his whole Oedipal process. Anyway, this is the beginning of the Oedipal stage in girls. Assuming the mother has castrated her, she turns her attention to her father and through him to other men. Yeah, no, like I said, this is yeah. Anyways, for Freud, the major Oedipal tax is adjustment of the young maturing girl to heterosexual relationships. Freud makes it clear that girls must be primed for these. In fact, we infer from his work that that whole scaffolding must be constructed for mature heterosexual orientation to take place. Is also important to understand. In this context, that the production of women's heterosexuality is a part of a larger project, that of the construction of hetero relations in general. So, Freud tried to, and you can argue failed a lot of the time, tried to apply some aspects of the scientific method. And a lot of science is trying to explain something, not suggest it is ideal for something. Anyways, the major supports for the scaffolding consist of 3 tiers. Not only must the girl surmount her penis envy to achieve normal female heterosexuality, she must also replace her first love / mother / woman with another, that is father / man. Simultaneously, she must transfer her sexuality from clitoris in parentheses active to vagina in parentheses passive. Freud defines an affinity for clitoral stimulation as quote-unquote pathological regression, and as that which negatively affects quote-unquote the sexual functions of many women. Yet Freud also states that chief erogenous zone in the female child is the clitoris. Gross thing to say, Freud. Just gonna say it. Gross. In order for the girl to become a woman, she has to repress clitoris sexuality during puberty. Yeah, no. Clitoris is look. Clitoris is a good thing. And Freud had a lot of weird ideas, especially early on with his attempt to break down and understand people. Dorothy Dinnerstein in The Mermaid and the Minotaur a work that has been used widely in women's studies and in feminist circles, adheres to Freud's theory. Well, that was their first problem of love transference from women to men, but highlights the shift quite differently than Freud does. The girl's original love was, like boys, a woman. Upon this prototypic erotic image, the image of man must be superimposed. Unlike Freud, Dinnerstein develops the idea that girl's original love was a woman and that the love of a man is secondary. Even more pointedly, Dinnerstein remarks, to realize that one is a female destined to compete with females for the erotic resources of males is to discover that one is doomed to renounce one's first love. I think Freud's whole concept is of the Oedipal stuff is wrong, and most psychologists nowadays would say that it's wrong, but I don't think to use the same framework would be good. Anyways, there is then in Dinnerstein's work a sense of actual tragedy that confronts the young girl, that she must renounce her primordial feelings of gin affection. Yeah, see, this is what I figured she was gonna go. In order to become a quote-unquote normal female, that she relinquishes to someone else, quote-unquote, in parentheses a man, love that is rightly and originally belonged to woman, and quote-unquote that she's cut herself off from a continuity with her early feeling for which she now mourns. Yeah, what Dinnerstein fails to note is that the young girl is also cut off from her own history and culture of affection and possibilities for strengthening its presence and present reality in her life. Well, this book requires an version of what it means to be a woman, which discounts the diversity of and complexities of life. It narrows, excuse me, it narrows what is beautiful to a static image that only a is viewed as inherently what everyone wants to and should achieve. Anyways, one can interpret from Dinnerstein's analysis of the Oedipal theory clues that are important for a genealogy of female friendship, that love of women is primordial for women, that women remain angry and ambivalent at having to suppress that original gain affection, and that women may spend lifetimes trying to regain that love, although often it's contorted and contorted in convoluted ways. This person definitely has a particular very absolutist view of things. Anyways, however, for all of Dinnerstein's enlightening variations, by the way, this doesn't mention the fact that the Oedipal thing says men inherently hate other men and love women, which also is not really something that's considered to be a good thing, and it's an atypical thing. Anyways, however, for all of Dinnerstein's enlightening variations on the Oedipal theme, what she ultimately highlights is the absence of women's love for other women, not the presence of it. Her book is finally directed towards the improvement of prevailing quote-unquote sexual arrangements, that is, quote-unquote the male-female collaboration to keep history mad. Italics mine. Okay. Other Freudian commentators take a different tack. Helen Deutsch, who did more than Freud to promulgate the theory of female masochism, nevertheless diverged from Freud's Oedipal theory. It is erroneous to say that the little girl gives up her first mother relation in favor of the father. She only gradually draws him into the alliance, developing from the mother-child exclusiveness towards the triangular parent-child relation, and continues the latter just as she does the former, although in a weaker and less elemental form all her life. Yeah, a lot of this seems to imply an absolute version of how like a default way that humans act that's changed inherently by society, and that's why it's not super accepted by the majority of the psychological community, because oftentimes current day psychologists go off of a mixture of nurture and nature. Anyways, Nancy Chaudereau, The Reproduction of Mothering, another widely used text in women's studies, follows Deutsch in accenting what I call the lingering gain affection of women. Quote unquote, for girls, then, there is no absolute change of object nor exclusive attachment to their fathers. Girls never make, quote-unquote, final and absolute commitments to heterosexual love as emotional commitment, whether or not they make final commitments of genital object choice. Really atypical use of language, but okay. Of course. Oh wow, this is a long chapter. I might not make it through this in the time. Traditional psychology has focused on women's ambivalence towards women. That is, the fact that women distrust or envy their female peers. Chaudereau emphasizes that many women feel profoundly ambivalent about loving women because an original and powerful attraction to women is constantly at war within women, competing with a superimposed attraction to men. Yeah, this is all just like very like this does not factor in the amount of cultural influence and conditioning which occurs in society, and implies that these attitudes are apply cross-culturally even when they don't necessarily do that. Anyways, girls cannot and do not reject their mother and women in favor of father and men, but remain in a bisexual triangle throughout childhood and into puberty. They make a sexual resolution in favor of men and their father, but retain an immense emotional triangle. What? I mean, to be fair, this is coming from the Catholic author saying that being gay is a choice, so obviously this can't include factors outside of the libertarian attitude of choice, which is quite pervasive throughout his society currently. Of course, Cheddar omits the fact that many women do not, quote-unquote, remain a bisexual triangle. That's for sure. And as this concept does not describe the reality of those women who do not participate in such a triangular arrangement. Further, many other women who do not remain in this triangle have not made a quote-unquote a resolution in favor of heterosexuality, but have been coerced into that resolution, or perhaps have resigned themselves to it. That sounds like a lot of so like there are some people, because heterosexuality is assumed because of culture as it is, people are pushed towards trying to explain themselves with a heterosexual framework. And so bisexuality and being a lesbian are not a choice. Neither is being asexual. Being intersex is not talked about. Basically, any queer thing is not talked about. But as this is the person who thinks that trans people should go through special re-education centers to try to untrans them. I would, yeah, obviously that doesn't apply to this person's thinking. Anyways, Chadro theorizes that a girl's transference of love from mother/woman to father/man is not completely accomplished for several reasons. I mean, what? Anyway, sorry, comparatively speaking, the father is not physically or emotionally available as the mother. Like Dinnerstein, Chadro notes that through erotic identification with a man, a woman refuses herself with a woman. I mean, men can be physically and emotionally available, but they're just taught not to be. Due to the societal structure, and it's not something that's inherent in men. I think the favorite example is men are hold hands in some countries, and that's considered perfectly, average, normal behavior for men. But it's not here because there's so many layers of homophobia that just being affectionate to another person is viewed as bad. Depending on the person. But Freud too recognized this point. He said women in heterosexual relationships look to men for quote unquote gratifications they want from a woman. However, because a mother does not confer upon the girl the same kind of love that she gives a boy, the daughter looks elsewhere to the father for the same confirmation of her specialness that her brother receives from her mother. That don't know what this person's what Freud's talking about here, but okay. At the same time, a daughter seeks to escape from the mother to develop a sense of separateness and individuality, which is also found in turning to men. She is more able to do this because her distance means she does not know him. Yeah, I don't agree with especially early Freud. Anyways, repeating the societal stereotype that women are the romantics and men the rationalists in love. Chodorow makes clear that women have acquired real capacity for rationality and distance in heterosexual relationships, qualities built into their earliest relationships with a man. She cites clinical and sociological evidence to support this claim. Most of these studies argue that women's apparent romanticism is an emotional and ideological response to their very real economic dependence. I mean, like, a lot of people can have romantic feelings. This is going against the concept of being romantic, or anyways. In addition to economic rationalism, Chodorow might have cited other social and psychological powers that men exercise over women's lives that make women more rationalistic and giving apparent primacy to hetero relations. So, like, here's the thing. Men are told not to express their feelings by society. Women are. It's not that women and men are both rational and both emotional. And I mean, every person on this planet, regardless of gender, is rational and emotional. And you can't, if you have feelings, you have emotions, and one of those emotions has and depending on the person, people are capable of having romantic feelings, but each particular emotion is not necessarily a guarantee, and everybody might experience different emotions or similar emotions in different ways, and different emotions to different types of experiences. Anyways, as Andrea Dworkin has enumerated, men, besides having power of money, have the power of self, parasitic though it may be, the power of physical strength used over and against women, the power to terrorize and inculcate fear, the power of naming, initially analyzed in Mary Daly's work, the power of owning women and all that issues from them, the power of sex that is fucking taking, forcing, conquering. So, like, the thing is, sex is usually framed through a heterosexual view. So, like, obviously women can have sex with each other. It's just different, and some of it's similar, because if you have a big enough clit, you can definitely push that into and against other people. Like, it's not... There's probably more overlap than this person thinks, and... and physical strength is also subjective. Men are taught that they're supposed to be strong, and there are some advantages in early strength. that don't necessarily apply later in life. Like, there are really scrawny dudes that, especially women outside of that person's weight class, can kick that dude's ass. Like, it's not... Strength is not inherent to being... Strength is not inherent to gender. And everyone's got power of self. I don't know why power of self is... Anyways. To women's distance from men, Chodoro juxtaposes that affinities women have for each other. Women spend more time in the company of other women than men do in the company of men. Yeah, that relates to the fact that men are not taught to in fact, arguably not have strong emotional bonds. Otherwise, it might be considered too gay or whatever. Citing Wayne Booth's findings as well as writings from men's liberation groups, she states that women's friendships with each other are effectively richer than men's. Yes, but societal factors are a major factor with that, if we're talking about the average woman versus the average man. And men can obviously have deep and caring friendships with women, and women can have deep and caring friendships with men. They're not sexual or anything other than just... And also this is probably more so the case with straight men, due to the fact that straight men are more... or have less likely fought the conditioning that has occurred throughout society. In many cultures, female relatives are each other's friends. However, deep, effective relationships to women are hard to come by on a routine, daily, ongoing basis for many women. Lesbian relationships do tend to recreate mother-daughter emotions and connections, but most women are heterosexual. Although Chodoro mentions heterosexual preference, taboos against homosexuality, and economic dependence on men as the reasons that make primary sexual bonds with other women unlikely, the phrase "most women are heterosexual" is a vast oversimplification. Adrian Rich has stated the complexity most clearly. Look, I think these people are putting too much importance on sexual attraction. But hear me out. The power dynamic of depending on anyone is bad. And women don't have the teachings and the cultural conditioning to not have women don't have the average cis woman doesn't have the conditioning to avoid emotions that the average cis man does, and avoiding emotions lets emotions control you, not the other way around. Or sorry, lets emotions control your actions, not your actions be somewhat independent of emotions if you understand the emotions are going through your head. Which makes the average woman, in a sense, the average cis woman, in a sense, is technically more rational than the average cis guy, but only because of the lack of emotional engagement. And there are always variations. There are men who are comfortable with their sexuality, with their emotions, with what they want, with their desires, all that jazz. Anyway, the assumption that most women are innately heterosexual stands as a theoretical and political stumbling block for many women. It remains a tenable assumption, partly because lesbian existence has been written out of history or cataloged under disease, partly because it has been treated as exceptional rather than intrinsic. I mean, the thing is that all assumes that that all women start with the exact same brain, and that's not true. Partly because it's acknowledged that for women, heterosexuality may not be a quote-unquote preference at all, but something that has had to be imposed, managed, organized, propagandized, and maintained by force is an immense step to take if you consider yourself freely and innately heterosexual. Yet the failure to examine heterosexuality as an institution is like failing to admit that the economic system called capitalism or the caste system of racism is maintained by a variety of forces, including both physical violence and false consciousness. So Adrian Rich actually sounds like a potentially intelligent person. I'm biased. Adrian Rich may have actually said something good. Here, I'm curious. Worth checking out. Likely about to be slaughtered. About to have views slaughtered by Janice here. On the level of personal relations, Chodoro does acknowledge that women's desire for intense primary relationships tend not to be with other women, both because of internal and external taboos on homosexuality, and because women's isolation from their primary female kin, especially mothers. What women are rejected from their mothers and other women? Further, the lack of effective response that women get in hetero relations, what Chodoro calls contradictions in heterosexuality, help promote the same hetero relations as normative. To have deep affection, women seek emotional sustenance with children and are thus oriented towards family and mothering, says Chodoro. Thus, men's lack of emotional availability and women's less exclusive heterosexual commitment help ensure women's mothering. Chodoro seems to have atypical views. We're not Chodoro's analysis. Sorry, I was just seeing how much was left. We're not Chodoro's analysis of personal factors, were not Chodoro's analysis of personal factors, so emphatically psychoanalytic, and her analysis is social factors so emphatically economic. She might have named it internal and external taboos on homosexuality. All of the obstacles that are marshaled against the whole continuum of gay affection, hetero-relational culture, and she might have named it women's supposed isolation from other women as the enforced segregation and sundering of women from each other. Chodoro and Dinnerstein provide clues to the origins and primacy of gay affection, it seems, without intending to do so. Their ultimate goal, as is apparent from the conclusions to both books, is to bolster and maintain flagging hetero relations and failed fathers. They wish to reorganize the institution of parenting so that men take more responsibility. I mean, I have no problem with people, both parents taking responsibility. Unfortunately, life and the economic system do not make that always viable. Both argue that the male absence from child rearing is responsible for a host of individuals and social disorders. Yeah, that's archaic psychoanalytical thinking that denies that views any sort of sexuality that's not heterosexuality as the wrong one. Anyways, with our blah blah blah. If this inequitable situation were remedied, they say, and men took equal part in parenting, all sorts of saving graces would follow. Chodoro states, this dependence on her mother woman and this primary identification would not be created in the first place if men took primary parenting responsibilities. Children could be dependent from the outset on people of both genders and establish an individuated sense of self in relation to both. I understand some of the thinking. I don't think that you inherently, due to the amount of stuff in the world, I don't think you need. The only way you would need to have various people in various different types of people in the exact same space would it would have to involve a lack of any ability to be aware of certain people. That's where things get more convoluted. I think the problem is men taking care of children involves men accepting and promoting actual care, loving care, and that is antithetical to a lot of aspects of society. Anyways, Dinnerstein states, when the child once born is as much the responsibility of man as of woman, the early vicissitudes of the flesh are handling of which lays the basis for later handling of mortality will bear no special relation to gender. Well, both Dinnerstein and Chodoro tell us that once more that men will be the saviors. Not quite. They kind of say that men are the people screwing up and that men need to do better. It's not necessarily saying that they're the saviors, but anyways, when men become equal parents, the grievances and ambivalences of childhood development are now foisted on the mother. The blame she incurs from being primary caretaker, and the gamut of quote-unquote heterosexual knots and sexual arrangements will not occur. What this finally means is that once more hetero relations must be the focus of women's lives, and that women should devote themselves to reconstructing new forms of hetero relations. Yeah, I mean, I will say that that is definitely true of this. There is no perception and certainly no prescription that women need to create new forms of relations with women. Having developed some remarkable insights into original attraction of women for women, and having given some clues why women reorientate that attraction to men, both authors fail to emphasize the importance of women's affection for each other as primary and paradigmatic. What do you mean primary and paradigmatic? Wait. Sorry, I was... I conflated paradigmatic with paradoxical for some reason. This is what happens when you use enough big words. Anyways, instead, Dinnerstein and Chodoro present an implicit and invisible exhortation for women once more to mother men, but this time women must mother men to be mothers. For if women do not do so, who will? This is the unacknowledged and perhaps unforeseen agenda in both books. What? No, there's the thing called fathers. Like, first off, if it's unforeseen, it's not an agenda. An agenda enacted by the authors. That I guess should be a bit clearer. Second, fathers are a thing. A caring father does not equal a mother. That's a weird attitude of absolutism. Anyways, Dinnerstein and Chodoro give us, in theory, what movies such as Kramer versus Kramer offer us in film. All three present the full-blown, quote-unquote, humanized and caring father. None of them tells us where he will come from. So, let me, dear God, there's an implicit, like, actual, like, that men inherently are uncaring and are impossible to change the opinion of or even suggest or even inherent or uncaring and impossible to change its opinion of or that changing the attitude of men does not ever change what they do. Like, a lot of this seems to imply this seems to imply that every aspect of history is inherently what's best for men, and that's not always the case. It's what certain men in power think. Anyways, the major problem is that is not that mainly women parent. Rather, the major problem is that mainly women become the visible and immediate conduits of heteroreality while deriving at the least benefits from such a system. As long as women acquiesce in the formation of what Dinnerstein and Chodoro would call the edible conflict in girls and what I would name as heteroreality, the channelling of love, power, and energy into men, nothing will change radically until women mother to love and care for other women. The system of women heteroreality will not be transformed. It seems to suggest that only women women change seems to suggest that women have to be the ones to implement change, and men will never change until women change to a supposed ideal woman. Okay. So this is page 38. One, two, three, four. Up at the top, red. And that's as clear as I can about where I am. That being said, thank you very much, everybody, for showing up on stream or watching it afterwards. And if you want, you can see me later on Twitch. I'll be doing League of Legends and Hades. Hades is a lovely, awesome game. League of Legends is a toxic mess, which I just happen to like playing. But yeah, so we can, or I'll be doing that, and streamators will be playing in the background, and yeah, have a wonderful time, and I'll see you on stream, or I'll see you next week. Whatever works. Bye. Oh, take care of yourselves. Everybody take care of yourselves. You're required to. It's a lot. Also, like, comment, and subscribe. Comment about your opinions or how I'm wrong about something or didn't factor something in. Yeah, bye.